True Conversations, giving the environment a voice. True would like to acknowledge the traditional owners of the lands across Australia, and we pay our respects to elders past, present and emerging.
Welcome back to True Conversations, where we talk about all things natural capital. I'm Kathy McLeish, senior producer and journalist with the ABC, and I'm with Dave Waters from True.
Hey, Kelly.
Hey, Dave. And it's our great pleasure to introduce you to Maree Adshead, is the CEO of Eco Markets Australia, working to facilitate investment in nature restoration and preservation through the establishment and administration of environmental markets. Maree's a former lawyer specialising in environment and planning. Prior to joining Eco Markets Australia, Maree was Queensland's inaugural Small Business Commissioner and has been a keen advocate for the needs and priorities of small business owners, with a focus on enhancing the operating environment for businesses. Maree also chairs the board of an innovative food and beverage manufacturing shared space facility being constructed on the Sunshine Coast, and is a director of a listed technology company. Maree, it's great to see you. You've got a lot going on. There's a lot there.
There is a lot there, and it's a pleasure. Thanks for inviting me to be a part of these conversations.
Thanks for joining us. It's fantastic to hear about the work, from that perspective of eco markets, and also interesting to sort of note your legal background as well with that. So it'll be great.
Yeah,
to discuss
I agree. I think probably in this role, it's pretty important, that your background, I think, would really add value to this role and ensuring that, the methods that are accredited are sound. So that's great.
So I guess we'll just kick off and ask you first off, tell us about yourself and your role in the natural capital sector.
Thanks, Kathy. And as you've just heard from the introduction, I'm a newcomer to this whole space, having had that legal background and been in state government in a very different capacity. My connection with well, apart from the planning and environment law stuff, which was a lot earlier in my career, this is really an 18-month journey for me in the environment and sustainability and natural capital space. So I come with pretty fresh eyes.
Yeah.
It might sort of appear to sound a bit of a random transition across from other things that I've done into this space, but I can absolutely assure you that it was a very deliberate choice. So it was something I really wanted to learn about and understand it better. And there's no better way to do that than to dive in, boots and all, and be involved in Australia's pioneer environmental market administrator, running a water quality improvement market. It's a baptism of fire, but it was a way to learn. And I really enjoy that, figuring out the rules and working out what compliance is going to look like and translating that so that, you can bring the rest of the business community or the community at large on that journey. So, yeah, it's a bit of a different trajectory, but it makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
And I guess probably some of our motivation for running the podcast series, it was to raise awareness about what natural capital is and what it means to different people, because as you say, it's sort of becoming common language now. And you talked about the compliance with environmental sustainability. It's just becoming so much more prevalent for business now. And we talk about this social license to operate, and so I think for us it was about trying to communicate to the broader public about why it's important and what it means to different people, because there's a lot of confusion around what is natural capital and what does it mean. And that was the motivation to say, well, let's just talk to a broad range of people and say, what does it mean to you? So that's the context.
Yeah. And look, I think this shifting mindset is really, in a way, what natural capital is, because it's for the first time for a lot of people in businesses, governments, we're thinking about nature and the natural environment in a different way. We're really seeing, perhaps for sometimes the first time, and really evaluating what our dependencies are on nature and the natural environment as a business or as an individual, and then what our impacts are on that. And that then starts to elevate nature or the natural environment as an asset or as a resource that you would ordinarily and traditionally and typically value, measure, put on your balance sheet. You would pay for it when you use it, and you would pay to repair it when you damage it. It's an interesting way of bringing that whole what is natural capital, I'm really enjoying seeing those light bulb moments with the business community in particular, and seeing, oh, well, okay, I get it now. It's just a thing that we've always had in our business. We just never really thought about it. We just never really valued it, and we never really thought about our dependencies on it. It's more obvious in some businesses than others. You know, you can walk down Queen Street in Brisbane and an accountant's not going to have it top of mind, whereas obviously a cane farmer is. But it is something that impacts everybody.
Yeah, and I think I think the sort of, one of our earlier speakers was saying that it's not about chasing markets. It's about the public demanding, the shareholders demanding that, we report on our environmental, social and governance, what are we doing there? And, they're demanding that. Yeah.
And hasn't that shifted over the last couple of years and shifting? I've seen in previous conversations this shift towards mandatory reporting, as it is already in many instances for climate-related financial disclosures, and now we're seeing it happening with nature-related financial disclosures. And once it starts becoming mandatory in one part of the world, it's going to bring the rest of the world to it, because in order for us to be competitive in our supply chains and be that, be globally competitive, we're going to have to demonstrate our credentials as well. So that creates a whole bunch of new opportunities.
Yeah.
Particularly in my space.
Yeah. You probably covered this off, but it'd be good to just kind of, put it, encapsulate it. How do you define and describe natural capital? Like, what does it mean to you?
It's the capital, resources and capital that you as an individual or you as a business or you as a government depend upon to conduct your life, your thing, and the impacts you have on that. It's that measurement factor for me, is the natural capital. Yeah.
And increasingly, obviously, it's it's becoming, as you said, it's becoming sort of an important part of the supply chain as a commodity, and something that we're having to really incorporate. What do you see as the greatest challenge that the industry faces?
I think it's like everything, the disruptive transition we went through with COVID. Business and all of us went through it a decade ago or longer with digital transformation. We all had to we were all coming online, and we were grappling with a whole bunch of enablers that we didn't really know a hell of a lot about, but we all had to learn. And the key to those transformative periods in our lives, I think, has always been about education, information and awareness. You've got to be able to understand. And the challenge you will find is people will say, oh, I don't know who to trust. I don't know where to get the right information. Once I find out what the rules are or what the opportunity looks like, how then do I apply that in my own business context or in my own context of my life? So I think that awareness, education, access to information is a really important challenge for all of us all of us in this space to overcome, so that everybody can come on the journey together and we don't end up leaving people being uncompetitive or being left behind unless they particularly want to be. And I think that's something that's really critical for us as Eco Markets Australia. We administer a market But at the same time, you might also say, in a sense, we're a regulator. And I think the role of every regulator a critical role of every regulator is that education element. You can't expect, in a traditional regulatory sense, the name of the game is compliance, right? The only way to get maximum compliance is to educate people about what the rules are and how to apply them. And so I think that that's a really lovely part of what Eco Markets is now trying to do more and more and improve the way we do it. And that is, how can we supply people with information that's neutral, independent, about this world of natural capital and what their roles and responsibilities are going to be as time goes forward? And how can they make the most of that opportunity? I would hate to see landholder farmers miss out on opportunities to generate revenue from good practice change, good stewardship that they're undertaking, when there were opportunities for them to tap into just because they didn't know about it or just because they didn't understand it or someone down the road had put them off because they'd had a bad experience. And that's another challenge, I think, in this space is natural nature markets, environmental markets are connected in many ways with the carbon market, and the carbon market experience has been a little bumpy. It hasn't always been smooth sailing. There's been great examples of good outcomes that have been achieved, but there's also been some integrity issues and there's been some challenges. That sets us back. So not only are we in a space that's new to people, that's confusing and complex and hard to navigate, but we're also doing it with one hand tied behind our back because there are these challenges around credibility and integrity, etc., that we're a part of, whether we like it or not. So that's part of the other challenge is building that trust and restoring integrity in this sort of a space. And I guess when you think about it, at the end of the day, what are we trading in environmental markets? We're trading in trust. Trust for the buyer. They want to know that what they're paying for is what they're getting, that, the outcome, the beneficial environmental outcome's real. It's happened. It's been measured. It's scientifically robust. It's not going to land them in ASIC's, sites for greenwashing. It's confidence and trust. And same goes for the landholder. They want to be participating in something that is going to be respected and valued and have a market, because at the end of the day, they're doing a lot of great work, costs a lot of money, and it's appropriate to be rewarded for that.
Yeah, and I think it's there's really that sector of that area of this industry that is about informing and educating, and really the area that you're working in as well. There's growth happening there too. That's a developing kind of part of
much.
Yeah, absolutely. What about the
and
greatest?
We don't do it by ourselves.
Yeah.
We're all part of a network and a collaborative community, and the more we work together to bring that awareness and that helping everybody navigate this fog, the more outcomes we'll get as a nation. And we need to, right? We know that we're already signatories to the Paris Agreement, and we're a signatory to the Global Biodiversity Framework. We've got hefty ambitious commitments with hefty price tags. And if we're actually going to get this done, it's going to take more than a couple of us. So,
yeah. And you made the comment that, with the carbon trading scheme, it's had a bit of a bumpy road. I would like to think that, we can probably learn from that in terms of, biodiversity, that, we can learn from those mistakes and get a better process going there with biodiversity. Would you agree?
It's exactly why Eco Markets was established, Dave, and it came out of the scheme, the Reef Credit Scheme, which is our water quality improvement market. That we didn't create that. Eco Markets didn't create that. It was created by our 4 foundation partners, Queensland Government, Green Collar, and 2 NRMs, Terrain NRM and NQ Dry Tropics NRM. And the reason Eco Markets was established was because that actually had the scheme up and running in 2017. That issued the first reef credit in 2019. Eco Markets wasn't born until 2020. And it was exactly for that reason. It was in recognition that best practice integrity means you have to have an independent administrator, an independent body that has no agenda in any of this, that oversees it all and can bring that trust. So, you know, that's our sole purpose in life is to be that independent body. So, yeah, I couldn't agree more with you. And that's a good example of learnings from carbon, separating out those functions.
Yeah.
Right.
What do you see as the greatest opportunity for the industry, Maree?
Well, I know everyone groans when people talk about the Olympics, but I think the 2032 Olympics groans not in a bad way, in a good way. Olympics 2032, I think, is going to be one of those globally significant events for Australia where we've got the world's eyes, ears, hearts, all focused in our direction. What a great chance to put on that global stage the good work we're doing here in terms of our environmental achievements towards the commitments that we've made as a nation in that global biodiversity framework. And it's so important for us. You know, we know that Australia is one of the rare, what do they call it, mega diverse countries. So our responsibility is even heavier in terms of that weight that we carry. But I think, you know, imagine if we could leverage things like reef credits, cassowary credits as an opportunity for the international travelling community that's coming to Queensland or the rest of Australia, and be able to use that opportunity to contribute to real projects, on-the-ground projects that are having a direct impact on the very locations that they're visiting as part of that Olympics experience. You could almost even tie it to the ticketing pricing and tourism experiences around events that are in key games locations. It's a really clever way, if we leveraged it correctly, it's a really clever way to also address this emerging thing I keep hearing about, particularly travellers coming out of Europe. And it might be in the younger generations, but it's a reality we need to start addressing, is this reticence to travel to Australia because of the carbon footprint, because of, you know, and visiting iconic locations in Australia because of this rightly or wrongly held perception that visiting the reef causes it damage or visiting rainforests cause damage to the rainforest. So how can we make that travel more attractive to those guys, giving them a way that they can read about, see real projects on the ground that they can go, that's what I've contributed to just by coming here. What a great opportunity. And I just think, look, tie it to the Olympics because we have that global stage to do it on. And I just think that's a really great way to demonstrate to the world exactly the progress we're making. We are doing really good things here in Australia, but we're typically not so great at crowing about it. And you know, the rest of the world would love an opportunity to learn from good examples. No one wants to reinvent the wheel. So if we're doing really awesome things, we should be putting it on the global stage. That's one opportunity. So
and I think so. One of the previous podcasts we spoke to Mike Stewartson from One Basin CRC, and he said one of the things that he's finding is you must have sort of clear vision and goals, and to some degree, this is an event that, you know, we can have goals, specific, measurable, achievable, time-bound goals in terms of emissions and the sort of things we need to achieve, and we have a hard deadline and a goal to achieve by a fixed date. And the fact that, you know, we'll be on show to the international community like we are on the reef with UNESCO, then that really focuses, you know, what people do, I believe.
yeah.
Yeah, and domestically, it's you know, it's an opportunity to share that information as well, isn't it? And help Australians be aware of what's happening here and what's being done.
Yep.
Where would you love to see it all in 5 years in terms of natural capital?
I'd love my phone to be ringing off the hook with people wanting to buy reef credits and cassowary credits. That would be a lovely problem to have in 5 years' time. But I can tell you now, in 5 years' time, they won't be using the phone to connect with us. It'll be more about, you know, this digital wallet on, you know, a distributed ledger, and they'll all be interacting and and transacting directly on our public registry, which would be an amazing thing as well. I think things I'd love to see in 5 years' time would be the mindset of a farmer about their business to have shifted such that, you know, they consider their business is more than a cane farm. It's a carbon farm, it's a nature farm, it's a biodiversity farm. And for businesses to see themselves in that much more holistic way, recognising that they've been actually doing it forever and ever. They've just never given it a name. But you know, I think that would be a lovely position to be in 5 years' time, when that's recognised as much as every other aspect of people's business in that sense. And that's the supply side of our market. That's going to help build that up. And then whilst my phone is ringing off the hook with people trying to buy credits, I've got credits for them. Because I've got this wonderful, you know, community of landholders that are wanting to do more.
And might I add, I'm assuming you'd also like a plethora of accredited methods out there that people have available to.
Oh, you are speaking my language. I would love to have. I look at the carbon market with such methodology envy, because there's something like 30 odd, and we have 4. So well, soon maybe 5, and maybe another one 6. So yes, the more methodologies we have, the more types of markets we have, the more diverse options there are for people to contribute. And I think that's the exciting bit, because, you know, it's not, you need to create different ways in order for people to participate as landholders in the credit market as well, because some have high cost barriers, some don't. Some are not suitable for wet tropics, and some are not suitable for dry areas. So we really have to make that diversity in the ways that people can participate a priority. So yeah, I hear you, Dave. I would love to have hundreds of methods, and I would love to have hundreds of landholders participating in different markets. And hey, you know what else I'd love in 5 years' time is to take the Reef Credit Scheme and make it a national water quality improvement market. So then we've got Sydney Harbour credits, we've got Ningaloo Reef credits, we've got Moreton Bay credits. That would be fantastic. Take the learnings and bring it national.
Lovely.
Yeah, amazing. Great concept. And you can imagine that, you know, that's a way to engage people as well, and to make it relevant, something they can kind of really understand and relate to, and see what they can do with, you know, in terms of investment as well, or, you know, to bring people.
Absolutely. And when it becomes, and it will eventually, if not through direct regulation, it'll be mandatory through your, you know, needing to compete and be in supply chains with companies that are doing mandatory reporting around their nature-related financial disclosures. So what a great way to give people options to be able to demonstrate their green credentials as part of their business operations, is saying, well, look, we've got open the trench coat. These are all my credits. I've got Reef, I've got Cassowary. But what a great way to be able to give people that opportunity to say, okay, well, I can't do a lot directly in my own business scenario, but I'll buy credits, because that way I can support someone who can. And that's a really important way to channel investment from all areas of our economy into this big hefty price tag that we know we've heard huge numbers talked about globally. Economists have had a go at saying what it's going to cost in order for us globally to achieve the commitments that all of those nearly 200 countries have made under the Global Biodiversity Framework. It's something like $700 billion a year. Well, where's that going to come from? You know, no government alone is able to afford to fund that. So we have to get smarter about harnessing money and investment from all aspects of our economy.
So I see that you're director of a technology company. would you agree that I think there's great opportunity for us, in terms of when you're developing methods and in terms of baselining and detecting change with the use of technology such as remotely sensed data and like the spatial and temporal resolution that we can now capture data, I think just provides us with a great opportunity. Would you care to comment on that in the context of your...
Oh, definitely, yes. And I think it would be awesome if we could automate as much of that as we can directly from wherever it's being collected. It's hard enough as it is doing all of this monitoring and reporting and, recording everything. And it has to be independently verified as well under our processes. If it was coming direct from the data source, and the technology was there that able to connect, to receive that information and plant it directly into our system, it reduces the cost of everything, because then the independent verification is heaps cheaper because, there's no tampering with any of this material. It's directly fed data. It's traceable all the way through. I think there's cost savings, there's streamlining, it makes it easier for participants. And I'm all about that. If we can use technology to make the life of the landholder farmer in most instances for projects under our schemes, if we can make that easier for them to participate, that's gold. So yeah, I agree with you. I think we're on this really exciting cusp of a wave of revolutionising the old ways of doing that sort of stuff. It's hard, it's laborious, it's time consuming. And if we can ensure that the methodologies that we're approving under our standards can cater for that, and we'll evolve them as that technology presents itself, we'll be embracing that fully.
Can I ask, is there one key takeaway for you on natural capital, Maree? If you had to kind of pin it down to one thing, is there one overriding, this is the key point?
One thing I think, having been in this game only a year and a half, is there's a lot of pursuit of excellence and perfection, and maybe we can just be okay with good enough. And what does good enough look like? I think we need to get more comfortable with that. Yes, I'm all for scientific rigor. I'm all for, this being backed and robust and bulletproof, but at the same time, we'll be waiting forever. So I think striking a balance in there that's an understanding and having some tolerances for that. And what is that tolerance, and what maybe defining what that level of tolerance is would be really helpful. But that would be the thing for me. Let's not shoot the pioneers that are having a crack. Let's get behind these initiatives and learn from them and help iterate them, make them better.
And interesting you should say that, because a couple of our speakers,
that too,
the private sector said exactly that. Yeah. That we accept we've got to have, consistent, repeatable methods, but, let's accept that we're not going to get it right the first time. And, they'd be happy to work with that, but let's just have a consistent, repeatable method. And, whether it's a measurement method or, blended with some modelling, but, just accept it. We're not going to get it right all the time, maybe.
Yeah, and don't shoot down the poor one that may be the one that gets it wrong. We've got to have a tolerance for that. That's all part of the learning.
Yeah, interesting. And as you say, Dave, the theme's come up a number of times, hasn't it?
It has.
Yeah. It's fantastic. So great to hear from you, Maree. Thank you so much for sharing those insights. And it's just, it's one of the sectors that we hadn't really heard about it so far, but that need for compliance and how do we get our heads around that, and where does that go next? And, that there is this pressure. We are shifting to mandatory reporting, and we need to build these things out, and that awareness of information, access to information, awareness, education, and application of those things is really a key, sort of work going forward. and that ultimately we're trading in trust. So, it's sort of essential to have those in place. I think there's, some really extraordinary work being done in this area, and it's fascinating to hear about it.
Yeah, and then one point that struck me was that the fact that you did say that you see a role of Ecomarkets Australia is that education component as well, which I think, as you said, it's really important. But I mean, it's great that you would acknowledge that that's something that needs to be part of what Ecomarkets Australia do. So well done.
Oh,
Yeah.
thank you. Well, we're doing our best. We are improving what the information we're presenting. We've got to try and be mindful that it's a complex area, and you want to say everything about everything in one go. We've got to calm our enthusiasm, and just make it, let's not overdo it.
And hopefully we'll all be buying, sort of credits, koala credits or reef credits or something at the Olympics as part of our ticket.
That's it. My phone is ready to receive that tsunami of phone calls.
Fantastic. Thanks so much, Maree.
Yeah, thanks.
Thanks, Kathy.
Maree. I know you're a busy person.
Look,
pretty hard to arrange this catch up, so thank you.
It's a pleasure. I'm glad Nick suggested it. Yes, it's a pleasure to meet you both and to have this conversation. I'm delighted that you wanted to learn more about what we're doing here at Ecomarkets Australia.
Thank you.
Truey Conversations is brought to you by Truey. We create data-driven web applications that give the environment a voice. I'm Bonnie Marsh, co-founder of Truey, and I really hope that you've enjoyed today's conversation. Thank you very much for being here with us, and I look forward to seeing you next time.